Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Respected President of the Institute, Chairman, Seminar and Conference Committee, past presidents, respected panelists of today's panel discussion session, members of the Institute, guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. On behalf of ICMAB, I welcome you all to this discussion session on a subject of profound importance. Before we proceed towards discussion session, I would now invite Maulana Kafiluddin to recite few verses from the Holy Quran. Maulana Kafiluddin.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن قارون كان من قوم موسى فبغى عليهم وآتيناه من الكنوز ما إن مفاتحه لتنوء بالعصبة أولي القوة إذ قال له قومه لا تفرح إن الله لا يحب الفرحين وابتغ فيما آتاك الله الدار الآخرة ولا تنس نصيبك من الدنيا وأحسن كما أحسن الله إليك ولا تبغ الفساد في الأرض إن الله لا يحب المفسدين صدق الله العظيم إرشاد হচ্ছে সূরা কাসাস আয়াত নং ৭৬ ও ৭৭ ইরশাদ হচ্ছে কারণ ছিল হযরত মূসা আলাইহিস সালামের সম্প্রদায়ভুক্ত কিন্তু সে তাদের প্রতি জুলুম করেছিল আমি তাকে ধনভাণ্ডার দান করেছিলাম যার চাবিগুলো বহন করা একদল শক্তিশালী লোকের পক্ষেও কষ্টসাধ্য ছিল যখন তার সম্প্রদায় তাকে বলেছিল দম্ভ করো না আল্লাহ দাম্ভিকদেরকে পছন্দ করেন না আল্লাহর দেওয়া বস্তু দিয়ে পরলোকের কল্যাণ অনুসন্ধান করো ইহলোকে তোমার বৈধ সম্ভোগকে তুমি ভুলিও না তুমি সদাশয় হও যেমন আল্লাহ তোমার প্রতি সদাশয় পৃথিবীতে বিপর্যয় সৃষ্টি করতে চেয়েও না আল্লাহ অবশ্যই বিপর্যয়কারীকে ভালোবাসেন না বারাকাল্লাহু লানা ওয়া লাকুম ফিল কুরআনিল আযীম আল্লাহুম্মা ইগফির লি ওয়া লিওয়ালিদাইয়া ওয়া লিল মুমিনিনা ইয়াওমা ইয়াকুমুল হিসাব আসসালামু আলাইকুম ওয়া রাহমাতুল্লাহি ওয়া বারাকাতুহু
Thank Maulana for his nice recitation from the Holy Quran. Now I would request and invite Mr. Mohammad Selim, FCMA, Honorable President of the Institute. Dear participants, Honorable President of the Institute. I will request the President to give his welcome address.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you and good evening. It is a great pleasure for me to welcome you to the ICMAB panel discussion on corporate governance, the role of independent directors. As a system arrangement in corporate governance, implementation of the independent director will help improve structure of corporate governance, maintain interest of all stakeholders, and protect rights and interest of small and medium size of investors. Like other developed countries in Bangladesh, countries, Bangladesh Securities and Exchange Commission has already approved appropriate guidelines through demutualization scheme to strengthen the corporate governance in Bangladesh. In this occasion, I would like to start off by thanking the moderator and the panelists for agreeing to participate in this important occasion. I welcome our fellow and associate member for their participation. I welcome other dignitary participants from different enterprises of the country. I also want to thank everyone on this staff who has worked to make this event successful. We are here today to discuss the increasingly important role that independent directors play in protecting the stakeholders of the company and how their effectiveness can be enhanced. These issues are not academic. I expect that this panel discussion will help shape our agenda on issues facing independent directors today. Today, we have some eminent personalities in the country who are expert on this issue, like Mr. Arif Khan, FCMA Commissioner, Bangladesh Securities Exchange Commission, Mr. M. Motin Chaudhary, Managing Director, Malek Spinning Mills Limited, Mr. Mamunur Rashid, Vice Chairman, BD Venture, Mr. M. Mohiddin, FCMA, past President of ICMAB and Member, Chittagong Stock Exchange, Professor Dr. Muhammad Osman Imam, FCMA, Professor, Department of Finance, Dhaka University, Mr. Muzaffar Ahmed, FCMA, past President and Chairman, Seminar and Conference Committee, ICMAB. ICMAB has a plan to organize this type of discussion sessions on various important issues in the coming future for the benefit of the members as well as of the society. Dear gentlemen, taking the opportunity of today's August gathering, I would like to say a few words about ICMAB. The ICMAB is an autonomous professional body under the Ministry of Commerce, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh. It is a leading professional body in Bangladesh that offers professional qualification in cost and management accountancy with a focus on accounting for business. ICMAB program has been designed to meet the evolving needs of the business today and tomorrow. The Institute undertakes research in relevant fields and is the sole authority to issue practicing license to its members. ICMAB is committed to maintain the highest standards while serving the students, members, as well as our business partners. As a professional body, we are also committed to continuous improvement through introducing new syllabus, organizing continual professional development program, need-based training programs to the members and the students to adjust with the changing environment of the business. Now the CMS play a pivotal role on the top management of different organizations. Today, alongside the manufacturing and service industries, the banking and financial institution, being the prime mover of the economic activities, are also treated as industries, where CMS are also contributing significantly through sharpen knowledge and through leadership. Due to huge competition and to retain the existing market share, cost competitiveness should be the prime strategic focus of the enterprise, and innovative cost management techniques should be applied to survive for the time and to grow the time to come. I think to meet such needs of the time, CMS are there, and for good governance of the enterprises as well as for their successful long-term survival, the importance of the service of CMS cannot be exaggerated. I do believe that this panel discussion and interactions of knowledge will go in a long way, and everybody will be benefited to ensure the accountability and transparency of the enterprise through good governance, where independent directors will play important role. Thanking you for your patience hearing. I wish the program a great success. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you, sir, for your nice welcome address. Now we will proceed towards our main focal discussion point. And before that, I would request very humbly Mr. Muzaffar Ahmed, FCMA, past president of the institute and presently chairman of the Seminar and Conference Committee, their participants, Mr. Muzaffar Ahmed.
Respected President of the Institute, a galaxy of professionals, along with the very vibrant and very known personalities as discussion session on this very, very vital, important subject, corporate governance, and especially the role of the independent directors. Once, say in 2006-07, we are organizing workshops on corporate governance, mainly to discuss on the theoretical aspects, particularly based on the OECD principles. But today, we are going to discuss on something which has happened. The regulators has taken some action, and we are here to now review what is the action and reaction of this corporate governance circular. Initially, the Securities and Exchange Commission wanted this circular as comply or explain. But later on, after 1 or 2 years, it has confirmed that now you will have to maintain it. You will have to go ahead with this thing on compulsory basis. Now, as all of you are aware, the corporate sector initially started by taking loan from the banks. And it mainly are the family-owned businesses, business houses. Later on, the Securities and Exchange Commission came up to start a vibrant capital market where some of the organizations initially and later stage, quite a good number of organizations, family-owned organizations or corporate houses came up as a public listed company. Now, with this circular, there are significant changes. Particularly, the chairman and CEO cannot be the same person. Lot of reactions and actions on these things. Then the question of independent director. Because independent directors means an outsider. Where board members are used to be in most of the companies to be in the dining table and the breakfast table, board meetings. So when you invite an independent director, whatever he is independent or not independent, you will have to sit somewhere in the name of at least a board meeting. Therefore, it has gone a long way now. 3 to 4 years already 3 years already happened. So we are now here to review this subject of corporate governance, especially the role of the independent directors. As our president said, we have few personalities who are directly, indirectly related with this corporate governance and doing research, applying, or looking from a holistic approach from different perspective. So we have with us, first of all, I will invite Mr. Arif Khan, Commissioner of Bangladesh Securities and Exchange Commission, to calmly take his seat on the dais. Mr. Arif Khan knows no introduction because, first of all, he is a member of the Institute of Cost and Management Accountants of Bangladesh, now the Vice President. Previously, now working as a commissioner, but before that, he was the Deputy Managing Director of IDLC, a most prestigious financial house of this country. He also was the President of the Bangladesh Merchant Bankers Association, with highest number of boards, and a very popular personality in the financial and the corporate world. Now, people who were the listed companies and who are now planning to go for listing, they all knows Arif Khan. He has, in addition to his degree as a fellow member of this institute, MBA from Dhaka University, he has got the rare qualification to be the certified financial analyst from ISUS, which is a rare qualification. Hardly there are few people in this country. So we are very proud to have with us Arif Khan, and let us give him a big hand. Now, I would introduce you a very shy man who doesn't like to come forward to show him what he is. He is Major Retired Abdul Motin Chowdhury. Motin bhai, I would request you to kindly come to the dais. Basically, I met him first when I have gone for credit rating Malak spinning. Then he was very busy man, he could not give me time. Suddenly his finance director told me that our MD is available today, you please come, he requested you to come to my office. I have gone here, I have heard him. I thought that we need some sort of philosophers like him. He is a rare personality in this country, I should say. He was major in army, he is a freedom fighter, a strong freedom fighter. And when country became independent, he left the army and started his own family business in the textile. He is now the authority in textile, having so many companies. Interestingly, his company Rohim Textile has gone to IPO long before. When people, many of the listed companies now are not even thought of going for IPO. Because at that time there was a perception, this is my company, why shall I share my ownership with some others? And Mr. Motin is such a personality who likes to, even today, having so many resources, having a business of Rohim Textile, Malik Spinning, Neat Asia, Titash Spinning and Denims, and few other companies he has got, his owning and managing it. That even then, if you see his car, he is using a Toyota, and he advised me, because this is his maximum requirement, not more than that. He donated his own father's residence at Old Dhaka for Diabetes Association, which price cannot be measured at this age. The price required, the price of this land and building. So, he is my philosopher. I always still remember his words in my life. So, I am very happy and fortunate to have him with me. So, please give him a big hand, Mr. Motin. Another personality with us today, although he is chairman of BD Venture, but I know him indifferently, Mr. Mamunur Rashid. I request Mr. Mamunur Rashid to kindly come to the dais. I started knowing him as a banker, but basically he is an economist. By education, he is an economist. By profession, he is a banker, and as a strong researcher on the economy. I don't see any writing of Mamunur Rashid that I missed. even when he has given some examples of how the banking, a customer failed, why failed, all these things, I have got some paper cuttings with me also, because when I am going for a credit rating, I want to see whether it is in his formula or not, or it outside his formula. So he has done so many things in the banking sector, especially I should say, when Basel II was implemented, I was not supporting him because I wanted that whatever policy Bangladesh Bank should follow, that should replicated from India. But he is the person who advised the government to do not more than 100% risk weight, but we prefer to have the 120, 50% risk weight. And there was a compromise with the Bangladesh Bank, and I think it was due to Mr. Mamun Rashid, who used to advise the central bank always as a very respectable gentleman. And in rating of Bangladesh by the S&P and Moody's, it was his initiative also. So he's one side he's an economist, he's a banker, and now a researcher, and now started another venture. It's called BD Venture, the first venture capital company in this country. So I wish Mamun Bhai will be very successful in this thing. So let us give a big hand to Mamun. Then I do not like to introduce, or I don't have the courage to introduce Mr. Mohiuddin, FCMA, a past president of this institute. Mohiuddin Bhai, I would request you to kindly to come to the dais. My fellowship number is 38. And he is my teacher. Whenever I wish to give correspondences, I was to always correct my correspondences and ask me to resubmit it again. I don't know who is that gentleman who has given so much trouble to go through all the things in a greater detail, word by word even. And later on, when I have seen him after passing, that is Mr. Mohiuddin, working in the Glaxo, and he is a philosopher. Then people at Chittagong now still, members at Chittagong, still believes that Mohiuddin is their godfather. So, Mohiuddin Bhai, he started his career in Glaxo. I know up to that. Then he left it, but kept his principle. He started his own business in garments. Very successful businessman now. After that, he entered in the capital market with the formation of Chittagong Stock Exchange, where he took the membership. And later on, he also participated in the membership of Dhaka Stock Exchange. Now, with the demutualization, ownership has changed substantially in the boardship. But it is the Mr. Mohiuddin who has been elected to be the director of Chittagong Stock Exchange after demutualization. Only out of 4 directors, I think, he is one of them who has been selected due to his knowledge, his contribution to the capital market. He has also written a book on capital market, and his sincere thoughts helping the stock exchange to come up to this stage. So we feel very proud to have Mr. Mohiuddin with us, and he is our fellow member. Thank you, Mohiuddin Bhai, to accept our invitation. Let us give a big hand to Mr. Mohiuddin. Mr. Muazzam Hussain is supposed to come with us today as an analyst. You know the editor Financial Express, but unfortunately his wife suddenly fell ill. She was required to operate upon in hospital, so he is not available with us. And we have another vibrant, very young professor, very talented professor of Dhaka University Department of Finance, Dr. Usman Imam. Usman, would you come here? Usman is a very talented student. He passed cost management accounting, but I have not seen him in the institute. And whenever I have seen he is a fellow, I asked him when he has become fellow, how he became associate, because he is not in the, he is always a researcher. And at Chittagong University, Dhaka University, whichever university, he is now an author. Wherever requires, he is asked for to go there. When we are discussing about this corporate governance, long before, then he took the initiative to have a center for corporate governance in the Dhaka University, and he is now heading that center. So the time, devotion, and research he has given in this subject is of utmost importance to us. So on the research side, I could not find anybody other than Dr. Usman Imam to come here with us. So thank you, Dr. Usman, to come here, Professor Usman, to have us. Let's have a good hand. I'm not taking much time, but I will try to cut short the things. Now, I would request Saima Akhtar Lima to give a flower bouquet, to receive Arif Khan with a flower bouquet. Our student Saima Akhtar Lima. I think I should skip this program of. Okay.
She should give to all of us one flower bucket.
Then by Rani Mondal.
For everybody.
Rani Mondal to Arif Khan. Moshumi to Mr. Mamunur Rashid. Then Pranita to Dr. Usman Imam. And Zobaida to Abdul Motun Chowdhury. Now I am with the participants to discuss with them on the subject. Thank you all. Now my first question to Arif Khan. He is the representative here, at least unofficially, of the Bangladesh Securities and Exchange Commission. My question to you, what was the expectation of the Securities and Exchange Commission from the corporate governance circular? Initially as comply or explain basis, and later comply basis. We believe that the BSEC has reviewed the performance of the compliance or explain outcome and finally made this mandatory provision. Has the target been achieved over the period of last 2 years? This is my question to you.
Thank you very much for giving me floor, and I really welcome all the participants here to discuss a very pertinent issue. To answer your questions, I have to go back a little bit. You know that Bangladesh capital market has been growing in the last couple of years. Our market capitalization is now around 30 billion US dollar. It's around 22% of our GDP. 10 years back, our market cap was less than $5 billion. But this growth has not come without any price. We have seen that in 1996, there was a stock market bubble and bust cycle. We have also seen another heavier, I would say very severe correction which took place in 2010 when the index went up to 9,000 and now it's moving around 4,500. So it's almost 50% off its peak, and that actually created a lot of hue and cry and discussion into the society. And we were having a lot of reform programs in the last 3 years. Whenever we met any foreign institutional investors or they came to us or we went to them, they were always asking one very basic question. Couple of questions they were asking. One of the questions was what is the corporate governance standard of the listed companies in this country? Like another question they always ask, what is the quality of accounting and auditing work of this country? So these two questions we always faced. And the earlier chairman of SEC, Mr. Farooq Ahmed Siddiqui, Mr. Mirza Azizul Islam, in 2006 came up with the first guideline on corporate governance, aiming to improve the governance of the stock listed companies a bit better. But as you mentioned it very clearly that at that point in time it was not mandatory. It was either comply or explain. If you cannot comply, explain what are the reasons that you cannot comply. Then we, the new board, new chairman, and we took over 2.5 years back. And we started to look into this issue. And this time in 2012, we came up with even more detailed corporate governance guideline. If you have any chance to look into this corporate governance guideline, this is available in Bangladesh SEC's website. And I'm sure the professionals who are working in different listed companies, CFOs or company secretaries, you are all aware of this. This is much, much broader, and this is a mandatory requirement. I just tell you, before going answering his question, highlights of major items of this governance. For the first time, we have introduced that in any listed company, at least 20% of the board members should be independent directors who are not the promoter, sponsor, or having more than 1% shareholding. In India, for an example, the ratio is 33%, 1/3 of the board members should be independent directors. Not only that, in India, they say that if the chairman is an executive chairman, meaning chairman is working in the organization, then independent director ratio is 50%. So we didn't go into that stringent policy because in our country, we don't have that much of resources, so not too many people for independent directors. So we went for 20% independent directors. We said that for the first time, CEO and CFO has to certify financial reports, and they have to verify that they have personally reviewed the financial statements, and they will give some reporting on that. We have, for the first time, we said that annual reports disclosure should be much more broader. I don't go into that detail, but if you look into recent annual reports of any listed companies this year, you will see much more disclosure requirement so that investors get more information. And finally, we also introduced that whether these corporate governance guidelines are being followed or implemented, that has to be checked by somebody else. So we introduced for the first time that corporate governance guidelines certification, whether it is implemented or not, will be audited by certain professionals. And we included for the first time chartered accountants, cost and management accountants, and chartered secretaries who are eligible for certification of these governance guidelines. And we also mentioned that this certification has to be published in the annual report so that there is no chance of you escape it. And that's how we came to this place. But a lot of discussion is taking place in the society. I will come later on. Whether we are happy or not, we are currently reviewing the status. And if you ask me generally, I would say that in 70% case there are compliances, but 30% case there are non-compliance. And in most of the non-compliance area are disclosure in the annual report are not yet up to the mark what we expected. In some cases there are confusions of independent directors, and in some cases we found that the independent directors are not playing proper role as truly independent. I think Mr. Mamun Rashid will be able to give you more answer on this issue. Mr. Motin Chaudhary is a very respectable person. He's coming from the listed companies side. He will be able to. There is a lot of debate. People say that where can we find so many people as independent director? Because we have got more than 200, 300 listed companies, and if you need those people, they have to really give time. And there are issues that how to select them. So we are kindly running now at experimental stage, but I must tell that a lot of discussion is taking place in the society, in the listed companies. I have attended a lot of courses in World Bank IFC sponsored corporate governance program, and I see that they are also organizing another program in Westin Hotel next 14, 15, 16. So this is a important area where we can.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Commissioner. Now I would turn back to the hot seat, Mr. Abdul Motin Chaudhary, who has got two publicly listed companies. One, Rohim Textile, quite long before. Now, in the last year or before it started, there is a Malak Spinning. So, I would now request you, how you have taken this circular in your company to select independent director, or what is the impact of this circular? What do you think?
Our business is basically a transitional business because the whole business atmosphere environment started only 15 to 20 years ago. Because before that, there were very few 100 crore companies in Bangladesh. But in the last 15 years, there has been a huge growth. This growth has brought in a lot of irregularities, a lot of favoritism, etc., which needs to be corrected if we want to sustain and survive our businesses. And this is very important that we do that because we have unequal competition in society today. We have different banks giving out different types of doles. And when they come in, they disturb the business. For example, you read about mostly the nationalized banks and other banks. So it must be very important that everything is structured and everything is regulated, and we have to come to a system where we finish the jungle business and come into real civilized business. So this corporate governance matter that has come up is something that is essential for us to do. We may have different opinions about it, but without this we can't move forward, and because we are growing bigger, we are getting into public domain, we are taking money from people, we are taking money from banks, which are also public money. So unless we start becoming accountable in a very transparent manner, we cannot have growth. And if we don't have growth, then it is not good for any one of us. Now, how do we encourage this thing to happen more? First of all, I think independent directors is a very, very good idea. A very, very good idea. And I don't think we have shortage of numbers, because it allows even businessmen to sit on boards. I also sit on some boards as independent directors. So, you can correct cross-matching from companies, from teachers, from professionals, from your institution, from other institutions. So I really don't think we have shortage. It is just like we have to get used to talking and working with people who are not thinking in our same frequency. And that is probably the spirit of having an independent director, that he brings in a new dimension to the thinking of the company board and all to the company activities. So I feel that the independent director ratio as it is today is okay. I don't think we should make it bigger at this moment, because we have to get used to this. As I was just saying, it's a very transitional society. India has come through this for a long, long time. Their businesses, their companies have been more active. So current ratio is perfect, but we must get good people, and we must give them the freedom to work and help ourselves. And this is for the betterment of the business. Otherwise, we will not sustain.
Thank you, Mohsin Bhai. Wonderful. Now, I would turn to Mr. Mamun Rashid. You are in corporate house in the bank for quite a long time. Now, what is your experience on this independent director, and especially the Bangladesh Security Exchange Commission circular on independent directors and corporate governance?
Thank you. I would welcome SEC's circular, or rather refurbished and reviewed and revisited circular. The journey started from 2006, and where as the Bangladesh economy is getting integrated with the global economies, so the need for standardization, whether minimum possible standardization or the highest possible standardization, that can be debated. We being operating in a transition economy that Mr. very respected and highly esteemed Mr. Motin Chaudhary has just focused on, but disclosure, where do we stand, and does democracy or does transparency, does accountability, does clarity mean the same here in Bangladesh that is being meant in Singapore or Hong Kong or London or New York? Any global investor would try to look at that. Having said so, that yes, I put in a humble article on how independent are the independent directors, or how independent is the independent directors. There I have been myself is working with few institutions in the financial sector as independent director, and increasingly I am losing interest. Why? Because it is not worth my time. And I think it is, as of today, while I salute, I welcome, I respect the issuance of the reviewed circular from SEC that will ensure minimum possible success transfer and standardization for the listed companies and as a whole. And this will send a message to the entire corporate world how we want to behave, how we should be behaving. At the same time, the fee, the way independent directors are being selected, and these are showing a lot of compromises. And I am of the opinion, and if I am being allowed to be blunt, that other than the retired government servants or retired businessmen as such, or university teachers, professionals that I'm talking in a professional body now, it will be very hard to attract and keep them glued on to do what is being expected to be done from the independent directors under the present fee structure that we get to see. Having said so, many of my colleagues and many of my seniors, in Singapore, Hong Kong, London, New York, Latin America, Middle East, they are working as the independent directors. Even in India, many of my teachers where I went to Northwestern University at Kellogg, that yes, I have seen that they are working for the Indian listed companies. The fee structure is much more encouraging than what we get to see here. This is number one. Number two, whether the independent directors are being allowed to work independently. And that can also be excused because, as Mr. Matin Chaudhary has mentioned, that this is a transitioning kind of situation. But we would be interested, and we should be interested to see how the independent directors are being selected, who are the people, whether they are being allowed to play their role, and more importantly, whether we are keeping them encouragingly engaged to ensure better success transfer.
Thank you, Mahmood Shah. Here, just as you are echoing with Arif, that initially when somebody coming from outside, the first question is how independent, how the corporate behavior of this board, and where role of independent directors is very important. So at the first step, I think that it has gone. And the other point you are raising that how independent the independent directors are, here then we have got something to do. So I am turning to Mr. Mohiuddin. Mr. Mohiuddin is now the director of stocks in Chittagong Stock Exchange. Now, these stock exchanges are working as a quasi-regulators of the PLCs. Now, how do you feel about the role of independent directors in the board of listed companies now? Because they are submitting accounts and everything to you, you are reviewing it, and how you see this independent director's role?
Thank you. In fact, before giving the reply of your question, I would like to say a few words about how the board is composed of, other than independent directors. When you say family members, father, son, daughter, grandfather, father, sons, and daughter, that is unequal people have been asked to become a team to score the goal. And this is the fundamental flaws of the board in Bangladesh. Maybe it was so in other developing countries like us. On that perspective, if we ask how important or significant is the role of independent director, I think it's a very tough question sitting in the board or looking from the stock exchange perspective, how the independent directors are performing. So what is the authority of board members? When anything placed in the board, they have the right to discuss, they have the right to inquire information, further clarification, not beyond that. If something is not included in the agenda, under the current system of the circular, independent director cannot ask for anything more. Now, but one thing we should appreciate that gradually things are improving. When SSC issued the circular in 2006, at that time it was said you have at least one independent director. If you don't have, please tell how soon you will have it. Now they make it two. And both the stock exchange is now composed of the board, majority is independent directors. So we are coming up. But when you come back to the performance area, you must know, or we must know, how these independent directors are being selected. No, although circular says that there is some restrictions regarding the selection of the independent directors, I would request the commissioner to verify, if possible, the selection of the independent directors.
Okay. How do you see this percentage, 20%? 20% to be independent director. Do you think that it is all right?
Percentage-wise, I think we should scale it gradually. If we go for more independent directors, acceptability is the most important. In our country, board, I don't know how effective are the board. Because how effective are the board? Because the very composition of the board is non-functional.
But
number one.
As an
number two, we do not have any arrangement in the country as of now to train the directors. So when somebody become the listed company, I would request the commissioner to make some arrangement to train the board member how they would behave.
Now, coming to your point, the corporate governance, at least an independent director, he should follow the normal, if the normal rules are applied, say he is to receive a notice, say 10 days, 7 days before, agendas is to be circulated to all, and the directors, the independent director is to act on this, the circular given or the agenda given. So if it is given, at least something is he's getting on the agenda to be discussed in the board meeting.
No, he can have the right to discuss the agenda if it is placed in the board meeting. So once there was a time, there was no notice, there was no board meeting, but there was a resolution. At least this thing has stopped. Since there is an independent director, there should be notice, there should be an agenda, there should be a working paper. This thing is coming up, and it will grow over the time when competition will become more strict and the rule of the law is allowed to play.
Thank you, Mr. Mohit.
But one thing, the independent director should show that his presence is relevant for the consolidation of the organization business, or for growth, or for risk management. So it depends on the quality of the independent directors, what kind of independent directors in the board.
Okay, thank you. Now I am coming to Dr. Usman Imam. Usman, you are researching on this corporate governance for a quite long time, even before this SEC circular. Now, how do you see this circular? Is it as per the requirement as you have seen the research? The circular, is it as per research? You think that this is the needed by the corporate houses, and the same fashion it has been given by the SSC. What is your opinion?
Okay. I'd like to share some of my research findings, as well as the first ever international conference hosted by our Center for Corporate Governance in 2005, which is prior to the February 2000 regulation, which is on comply or explain basis. And we have seen there on one of the leading houses from Samson Choudhury Square Group, and they come up with an idea that actually corporate governance is not indeed required to be fulfilled by an independent director. That was the first impression from a leading house, which had turned out to be one of the leading house, and they are coming in, especially Tapan. They came in and debated. It's a really debated issue at the time. And there are some Indians, on the side who have already adopted, number of directors on their role. They argue that actually the presence of independent director in the board indeed has a merit for a good governance. Now the question is, that was in 2005, and when we see in 2006 regarding the circular that came in, and I have done immediately after a few months later extent of compliance over time. It was found, most of the cases they took time to get even comply on the issues, and some even didn't go for explaining the issues. Later on, we see there is an improvement over time. So they are getting used to it in a sense, because I think they started thinking that corporate governance, good governance in the organization lead to good performance. That is one of the things. Now, even with the research, I will like to say a few things. We have seen earlier that is the disqualification of the independent director has been mentioned. Now, over time, with this new, they have come up with the qualification as well. So, disqualification, who can't be independent director, now they come up who can be independent director. That is it. And the important things I've seen, the role of audit committee, where independent director, the chairman of the audit committee should be independent director, having some accounting literacy as far as concerned the way it is mentioned. And I see that I will rather say in Bangladesh, one of the research I'm quoting is a non-performing loan resolution evidence from Bangladesh, bank level evidence from Bangladesh. And we have seen regulation has an impact, corporate governance variables has an impact, but it still is more precise regulation played much more greater role for ensuring the good compliance rather than the corporate governance as it was in Bangladesh. And I will share later on, because I have been on the board in a primary regulator in a bank, in a non-bank, and also a fund manager for more than 10 years as a fund manager in capital market, where I represent outside director, fulfilling a role of independent director. And I will say there is much role to play out there, these institutions, as compared to manufacturing, where it's still the way independent director may be chosen, instead of independent, it is becoming, dependent on the directors or the boards, the way they like to choose it. And in addition to that, I want to give my view with regard to the role of independent director, who may provide lip services unless they are required to be compensated clearly. Otherwise, you need to make them accountable. I will share some of the things later on, and that kind of definition, compensation be fixed by the board, not necessarily through the regulation. I'm not saying that one. Let the board be confident on how much to compensate, because the way they want to get them used for the betterment of the organization.
Okay, thank you, Isman. Now I'm coming to Arif Khan, that some of the things are now coming up from the circular itself, and where circular is also absent. I'm just 2 points I am noting from Dr. Usman Imam's discussion. There is a selection process. They have got a question how the selection given by the SEC in the regulation. The other thing, the circular itself is silent about the compensation of a professional who is rendering service, and what is his remuneration for these things. So, what is your opinion on these two things?
Okay. Regarding a selection process, our guideline clearly spells out that what are the criteria, what are the qualifications of a person who are eligible for to be seated in a board as an independent director. So very clearly spelled out clarification and qualifications there. And it is the role of the existing board of directors of a company who will select persons from society, from professional group who satisfies or qualify those criteria. And then the board nominates him, adopt him as an independent director in the board, which later on adopted in the AGM. So that's the normal process, and that's the process around the globe. It's not that regulator will approve this independent director. In certain cases, there are cases, but I heard that there's very significant questions are being raised by especially minority shareholders who are not controlling in the board. They're telling that maybe the independent directors are the friend of the owners. Maybe they're a very close person with the owners. Maybe they are serving their purpose only. So how can you stop this? This is a huge debate. I attended a Hong Kong Futures Commission meeting last month in Hong Kong, and they are discussing this same issue. It's not new in Bangladesh, but gradually it has improved there. In UK, recently there is a serious discussion that whether the independent directors should be elected by only minority shareholders, not promoter shareholders. So promoter shareholders may not have any voting right to select the independent directors. Only the people who are not majority, they will be voting for. So this is a subject which is being discussed in that level. But I think we will not go into that extent initially, as Mr. Motin said very correctly, that we are in transitional stage. We need to get first used to with this system, and then gradually, if you try to do too much thing at a time, then it breaks down. Like in India, we are also thinking possibility that what model India follows, that they prepare a list of people who can be appointed as independent director. Regulator and Ministry of Finance, Commerce, they work together and they prepare, suppose, a 1,000 people's list in the database who will be eligible to be selected independent directors. So thereby they test at least basic criteria of those person, integrity and possibility. So that is a question that whether we will go in that model will take a couple of more time, and the issues are there. And regarding compensation, I think Mr. Mamun Rashid and Mr. Usman Imam raised very, very pertinent question. I went to London Stock Exchange and London FSA last year, and I found that in London, most of the bank's directors are personally interviewed by the central bank. before appointing them a director. And not only that, it is being practiced that most of the bank's majority directors are actually independent directors. Shareholders do not sit in the board. They send their representatives in the board as an independent director. But those independent directors are heavily paid. It's like full-time job. And when you hire Mr. Mamun Rashid, Mr. Motin Chaudhary, Mr. Osman Imam, Mr. Mohiddin as an independent, Mr. Muzaffar Ahmed, I think the contribution these people will give, sometimes owners do not understand. So this is just the beginning. I'm sure that this will happen. In every country in the globe, remuneration has increased significantly because similar thing happens in Bangladesh in case of auditor selection. I have seen, and many of us experience the same scene in the AGM when we try to find out a better auditor with better credentials. And if you want to raise the fee to 50,000 taka only, even shareholders say no, 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 no. And I really wonder that these people will safeguard the shareholders' interest first. So this is a cultural issue. I'm sure that it will come later on, and we will encourage corporate bodies, if they increase proper remuneration for the independent directors, I'm sure it will work further. I just want to say one added point for you, that in the corporate governance guide, Mr. Mohiddin mentioned that proper training is required for the directors. We have also mentioned every listed company has to have a code for the board members, a policy. That is a mandatory requirement. So every organization will have a code of conduct for the board of directors, what they can do, what they cannot do. I'm sure once it is done, and there are some international organizations coming, we'll have a lot of training. Even regulator can also give some.